In today's show, we're talking all things UConn draft prospects with Mark Zanetto of Locked On UConn. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making the show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. Today's show, a very special one. We are joined by the star of Stores Connecticut, Mark Zanetto himself, the host of Locked On UConn. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Undefeated in your podcasting career, you're telling me, Mark. You have never covered a UConn's men's basketball loss in your time.
Yeah, it's a silly little thing we talk about at the beginning of the show. Got added late to the Locked On network. Right after the Creighton loss is the last time UConn men lost during the year. And then obviously I'm on my own personal 12-game winning streak. Let's put it that way.
Well, listen, they closed strong. They looked like the best team in the country, and then they were proof they were the best team in the country yet again. What I want to talk about today is the guys headed to the draft, specifically Donovan Clingan and Stephon Castle, as well as one of my favorite second round prospects, Alex Karaban.
Sure.
We'll get into all three of those guys and kind of how you've seen them improve and what you kind of think they might be like as pros. But let's start with Clingan. First of all, incredible nickname. Where have you seen him improve most from year one to year two as a collegiate?
I think patience, right? If you're not familiar with UConn, the college game is so different from the pros. But one of the things that you can get from this year's prospects, whether it's Clingan or Castle and then Karaban eventually, is they play in a pro style type of NBA offense. It mirrors the Golden State Warriors. It mirrors FIBA basketball. They've really adopted a motion where they're constantly using. It's not like you're watching Zach Edey in Purdue, right? Just because Clingan's 7'2" and he could be a traditional post player, he's not. I think some of the patience behind that is what I would see in his footwork. You know, his ability to dribble handoff, to be a free throw line extended, even all the way out to the 3-point line, is what's going to kind of make him that draft prospect that people are going to drool about. But those aspects of his patience, his ability to pass out of double teams is another aspect that I think I've seen him improve on the most.
He for me, I think he'll be a good defensive player relatively early in his NBA career, just because he's really big. And really big always helps. And he moves his feet well for someone his size. Like, he's gigantic and he's not like super, super slow. There were times, I think, early this season when I watched him a couple times, where he was still coming back from the foot injury and he did not have the speed. He did not have the lateral quickness. But then once we got to tournament time, he was humming. I thought in the national championship game, Zach Edey had a big line, but I thought Clingan was great against him. I thought he guarded him really well, other than the first 6 minutes where Edey was just making a bunch of right-handed hooks. I thought Clingan took him out of what he wanted to do, and mostly the middle of the game when it was competitive, I thought Clingan guarded, the most dominant player in college basketball one-on-one. They didn't really send help. I thought he guarded him really well. I'm not worried about his defense. Do you think he can defend at an NBA level? Like, do you think NBA athletes will challenge him a little bit?
Yeah, I think they will. But when you see kind of some pockets where you're not always finding elite level talent at the college level, but at the times where they did play against the elite level talent, Terrence Shannon Jr. of Illinois is an elite finisher at the rim. They held him to basically 2 points throughout that game. And a lot of that was they were attacking Donovan Clingan on pick and roll to see if they could get him in foul trouble. And he had none of that. I think he had 9 blocks in that game. And really kind of ignited that 30-0 run that is famous for that Elite Eight game. And that's not a 16 seed or a 9 seed. That's a 3 seed Big Ten champion, Illinois, that, forget about what Terrence Shannon's legal troubles are. If all things being said, he's a potential lottery pick. So these are the type of players that he's going to have to guard at the next level. I have no issue seeing him in pick and roll, his ability to hedge. I think you're not going to have an issue with him against your kind of normal run-of-the-mill NBA player. Maybe against a Damian Lillard or
exactly.
Someone.
He's going to get got sometimes for sure.
Yeah,
that's how it works. And shot blockers get dunked on. That's ask Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning, from like the classic guys who challenge shots at the rim to Dikembe Mutombo. They get crammed on. It's if you're going to challenge shots, you're going to get blocked. I think at about 24-0 during that UConn run, I said, yeah, I don't know that we need to play the rest of the games. I don't think anyone's going to beat them. Like when it was about 12, I think it was 24-0. I'm like sitting on the couch, like, yeah, I think we're good here. I think we could call it. On this one. And they ended up, I ended up being right. And a pretty easy prediction there. Clingan's offense, he doesn't get traditional post touches. Like you said, they run so much like stuff, right? Where he doesn't even get like a lot of dump ins in the post. And I think to some extent you didn't see Steph Castle like get a bunch of sort of like pick and roll, go get it type of plays because they just run so much dang stuff. It's so much motion and so many things that sort of set up back cuts and split cuts and things like that. What is Clingan's what is his sort of offensive ceiling? Where do you see him growing on that end? Because for me, that is the concern.
Yeah, I think you have to look at a couple things. Number one, I don't have a player comp for you. I think defensively, his player comp ceiling is a Rudy Gobert, where you could be a defensive player of the year type player. Offensively, that's going to come over time. When they've had blowouts this year, which they had a lot of at the beginning of the year, he stepped back out and hit a couple threes. He has that ability. His mechanics are perfect. You don't have to mess with his shot. I think that's the key. The shell is there, the bones are there for him to continue to be an offensive threat. I think you will see him be a 30% 3-point shooter initially, maybe getting to that 40% level as his time goes on in the NBA. But I wouldn't say he's not a ready-made 3-point shooter coming into the into the NBA. What he is basically a skill set, his ability to kind of to really kind of mesh all of that with his touch. He's got a good jump hook. What I want to see, the weakness he has, he's a legit almost 300 pounds. I want to see him cram on guys more, like really go after them and dunk on guys because he has that ability. He has a wide body. He's not going to come in. He's not a Victor Wembanyama. He's not skinny. You know what I mean? So he has an NBA frame. So his offensive game is gonna enhance as time goes on. Defensively, you have a gem right out of the gates.
Yeah, the comp I've been using, and people got mad at me, and you'll probably get mad at me too, is Steven Adams, because I think he's screen setter, good passer like Adams is,
sure,
and might could be the guy who sort of anchors as a dominant rebounder type. Although his numbers, like counting numbers, maybe aren't great on as a rebounder, but he's gigantic, and the college game's a little bit different. I worry that he doesn't have. I'm not so worried about the 3-point shooting. He took 9 threes in college. Like eventually, maybe he'll shoot threes, but the sort of in between stuff. Like I don't think he's going to get a bunch of direct post ups, but if he catches it on a pick and roll and say like there's a double team that's 30 feet from the rim and he has a 4-on-5, he's a good passer out of those situations.
Absolutely.
But can he shoot at 12 and 10 feet comfortably to say, hey, if you better step up and help, because if you have a nice little mid-range touch, particularly for someone his size and his passing ability, then you're really dangerous in the pick and roll. I think he could get there. I would say for me, the only reason that I'm not like, yes, surefire top 3 pick is because I don't know what his offensive ceiling is. I think he does a lot. Like I'm really comfortable with him being a good pro because of the defense and the skill as a passer and just he's big and mobile enough at his size. But I think my concern, or I guess like the thing that I would say the weakness right now in his game is that I don't know what his offensive ceiling is because I don't know what it can be. But in the NBA, you don't really need direct post-ups. Like not like star centers get post-ups. Star centers, like they throw it into Jokic and Embiid. They don't throw it into Ivica Zubac. Like they say, hey, defend, roll to the rim, get rebounds, dunk on lobs. And if you have him narrow a role, which I assume Clingan will early in his career, I think he can still be pretty effective.
Yeah, I think that's a great comp. I think initially, but I do think he's got a better touch than any 7'2" guy outside of an Embiid, maybe outside of Victor Wembanyama that at that size. So I definitely think he is going to be comfortable in that 8 to 12 foot range where he can be, little float game, like you saw with Zubac last night with the Clippers. So I think it's a good comp, but I think he has better touch. So I think there's the higher ceiling there.
People don't like when you compare player like you're supposed to compare like Clingan, like how can he be Nikola Jokic? It's like, okay, how can he be how can he be Zubats? Like how can he be Zubats? Like how could we it's like let's start with like very serviceable center on our playoff team and then move from there. So I think that's I think player comps get people a little riled. So I love to do it here. So let's talk Steph Castle.
Sure.
I love his game. Let's talk all about he's climbing up draft boards. There's a chance UConn has 2 top 5 picks. We talked about the first one. Let's talk about the second one in the second segment. Join us there, won't you? Today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, whether that's superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. If you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts to choose from, your number one ride or die will always get exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, baby, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car an MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Still a pass first point guard. Oops, I usually do that in my third segment. So let's just say, all right, still chatting here with Mark Zanetto of Locked on UConn. We're talking UConn draft prospects. We talked Donovan Clingan. I want to talk about Steph Castle, a guy I really like. I like his game. I think he plays at a fun pace. I think he's really special on defense. And in this draft, fun pace, really special on defense, you might go freaking second.
Right.
Anything is possible. Steph Castle he's played 34 games for the Huskies. What do you like about him? What have you appreciated about his season as doors?
He is a what I like to call, it sounds so cliche, but he is truly a high character kid. There are absolutely zero concerns about him getting drafted by the Blazers or anybody in the NBA, because he comes from great stock. His parents have, brought this kid up to be an absolute worker. And what I mean by that is, here's a 5-star kid in today's NIL climate where UConn asked him to play a role. They asked him to be a point guard, pass first, defensive stopper. When he has great form, he didn't shoot volume to be a 40 or 45% or 30 to 40% 3-point shooter. His free throw percentage jumped from 50% earlier in the year to, I think, almost close to 80 by the end of the year. He works on his game constantly. So where you're going to get a Drew Holiday comp on defense, his ceiling, and people are going to laugh at me and get you all riled up, get your audience all riled up.
Let's get people mad with player comps. Yeah.
No, I think they're going to get mad, but they're also going to get excited. If they believe me, his ultimate ceiling, considering his size and his ability, is a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He is that type of player. He is a legit touching 6'7", 200-pound kid that's 18, 19 years old coming in, and he's a pro already. Like, he is pro ready. He has the patience to get to the rim and not go, full steam ahead. He has that ability to pass out of any situation, and he rarely made mistakes. I mean, it's hard to do as a freshman on a team that just won a national championship to come in and then anchor a back-to-back title. Without him, they don't win a title this year. There's no question about it. He saved them multiple times in games. He is also the guy that, in a game where guys weren't shooting well, whether it was Cam Spencer or Alex Karaban, Tristan Newton, where they said, okay, go get a bucket. And he was like, all right, I'll do it. So Steph is a willing scorer. He does what he's asked, and then his game will expand as time goes on.
Yeah, he didn't shoot well in his lone rookie season, 26.7% from three. But then against Alabama in the Final Four with my man Nate Oates, who said, let's test the math. And Steph Castle hit threes early in the game and said, I can hit comfortable like practice jumpers. Like I might not be a good 3-point shooter, but like I do practice taking jump shots. And if you give me practice jumpers, I'll hit them. And that changed the game because then it was like Alabama had to say, oh dang, we lost. The math ain't mathin'. Like now we have to sort of chase it, right? I like you said kind of point guard role. Is that what he is at the pros? Like is he a one? Is he a one probably in the NBA?
Very much so. I don't think you're going to get I think as he improves as a shooter, you can get away with playing him alongside a shorter point guard or a smaller guard to kind of be that combo guard. But he's a one. He's a tried and true one. He's a prototypical point guard. For the NBA, 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", lean, broad shoulders, can get a bucket on the block if you need it. They utilize that in that same Alabama game where they had a 5'11" Mark Sears and just threw it to him on the block and he got easy buckets. So if you play an undersized guard against Steph Castle, he'll make you pay. He's also unguardable from the free throw line in. You know what I mean? Like where if he can rise up on anybody and take that little mid-range jump shot that Chris Paul made a living out of. And if you kind of chase at him, he'll dump it off to the big for a dunk or lobs. You saw with that with Samson Johnson this year. So there is so much you can do with Steph, and he's not a finished product, but he's already pretty solid. And if all you get out of Steph Castle is Drew Holiday, it's a pretty damn good pick.
Yeah, it's like that's a Hall of
lockdown defender. Yeah, so
yeah, I like good. Drew Holiday's probably gonna make the Hall of Fame. That's it's pretty good. He might not. Actually, basketball Hall of Fame's weird. I bet Drew Holiday makes the Hall of Fame. He's gonna win like 2 gold medals. You're in. It's weird qualifications. Yeah, so I really like Castle's passing. I think that's when I first watched him earlier this year, that was the first thing that stood out. Was like, oh, he can dude throws dimes, and he throws dimes in their system where it's like two flare screens to get the guys moving to the outside. Somebody does a back cut. If it's not there, there's another action on the other side. And he read and processed and made plays in their system. He doesn't get to run like a million high pick and rolls, right? And that's why it's like, is he a point guard? Because he doesn't run sort of a more simplified, like, okay, pick your matchup. Okay, Clingan, come out here, bring your guy up high at 20 feet, and we'll run a pick and roll, and I'll kind of get there. But he runs their offense well. He pushes it in transition really well, like just hit-ahead passes, right? When they say, okay, we're going to go. Mm-hmm. He throws some great hit-ahead passes just to get guys out in space, Karaban and Spencer out in space. And he defends everybody. He can guard everybody. The defensive versatility is the thing that I say, like, yeah, like he'll be – who knows what he'll be like as a year one player, but I think the defensive versatility, like you mentioned Mark Sears, that dude is, SEC player of the year, I believe, but like he flies off screens. He's tiny and can navigate, as an on-ball player, he's really quick. As an off-ball player, he flies off screens. And the thing that I was really impressed with watching Castle is that at his size, 6'6", doesn't get screened, does a really good job of saying, I'm not going to get rubbed off the ball. Like there's no one who's going to pick me off as I'm navigating off the ball. And he can guard the point of attack. Like, how many different types of players did you watch Castle guard this year?
They rotated him around a lot because when UConn's offense, they have a lot of bigger guards, right? They had Tristan Newton at 6'5", you had Cam Spencer at 6'4". So it really was, who do you want to shut down? That's who you send Steph Castle to, right? So we mentioned Terrence Shannon Jr. in the first segment with Donovan Clingan, getting his shot blocked against him. But part of that was starting with the point of attack and sending Steph Castle to him. There was a guy from Northwestern named Boo Buie, who was, I think, a Big Ten first or second team player, and Steph held him to 2 points throughout the whole game. So whoever Steph guards, they typically had an off night. That is, from shorter players to guys his size to even kind of undersized, kind of what Karaban did in playing the 5 sometimes. If you needed Steph to play the 4 or 5 guy just for a possession or two to give your guys a blow, he would do that too. So again, ultimate team player, phenomenal passer. And up to your point, he didn't run a lot of traditional point guard for UConn because they had Tristan Newton running those pick and rolls. They had Cam Spencer doing the same thing. So he did a lot of backside where the shot clock's running down, they kick it to him, and now he has options, right? They mirror their game off of, they do a lot of horn set, but they also kind of do, rub screens where they get backdoor cuts.
Right.
There's a lot of processing. It's a great word you used, because that's what Dan Hurley looks for. Is he looks for players who are processors, right? Are you a quarterback? Can you process information quickly? And Steph Castle can.
Yeah, I don't really understand how Dan Hurley gets guys who can run his offensive system, because it is there's a lot going on. A lot of college offenses are like, we're going to run 2 screens along the baseline, and then you're going to come out and get a shot. And if it's not there, we'll run a pick and roll. And Dan Hurley's offense is like, there's just a lot of options. It's a lot of options.
There's
and
12.
the guys who run it, the guys who run it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guys who run it really well. And and Clingan with the passing and Castle with the passing, like part of what unlocks a complex offense is guys at different positions who can pass, and they certainly have it. Okay, Alex Karaban is someone who I see mocked mostly in the second round, and I am very comfortable with him being an NBA player. I watched him play this year probably a handful of times for UConn, and I think he's going to be an NBA player. Let's talk about him to close the show. Join us there, won't you? This next segment is brought to you by BetterHelp. Therapy can be incredibly valuable for whatever you're going through. It's always useful to get things off your chest and talk to a neutral third party about what you're dealing with, because we're all dealing with stuff, whether it's big or small. Big things like, major traumatic events in your life. Therapy can be incredibly valuable for sort of navigating the really big, hard stuff. But therapy can also be a really, really useful tool if you're just trying to deal with the challenges of everyday life. Think about it like routine maintenance for your car. You take your car in at, 75 and 100 and 125,000 miles just to keep it running smoothly. And you could take yourself to therapy each week to make sure that you are running smoothly as well. Develop the tools to become the best version of yourself, or at least get the ideas of what those tools might look like. Therapy can be different. It can be different for everyone. Most of us are having, problems, whatever it is, big or small. And it's important to get those things off your chest. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be flexible and fit your schedule. So visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's show is also brought to you by DoorDash. You know DoorDash because they bring you your favorite foods right to your door. But did you also know that they could make your Mother's Day special? Maybe you want to deliver a unique gift from one of your favorite retailers, or you just want to send flowers day of on Mother's Day to make sure they land with your mom. Well, DoorDash is the place to do it. You can order, day of delivery to make sure things get there, or you can schedule orders in advance because you're a great son, daughter, child, husband, partner, whatever it might be. And you want to make sure mom gets what mom needs on Mother's Day so she knows she's appreciated and loved. Get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place. Get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. We're chatting here with Mark Zanetto of Locked On UConn, all about the UConn draft prospects. The last one is one of my faves. He's big and he can do a lot of stuff, and that seems to be what NBA teams want: size and skill. Alex Karaban is mostly mocked in the second round. I see him high up in the second round, see him kind of mid-second round pick, but I don't often see him. It's April. We're 3 weeks out from even the draft lottery, and much longer, a couple months out from the NBA draft. What do you think about Karaban as a pro prospect? What makes him appealing?
I think it's all the little things, right? Effective as a screener, effective as a flare to the rim, also crazy range. If you go through UConn's year where they get on the break and he's trailing because maybe he got the rebound, or he's just trailing the play because it's not, he's on the weak side, coming in for drop threes, 27, 28 feet out, logo threes. He has that ability. He's also one of the best. Talk about this. His nickname on the team is the Brain Center. They don't name you the Brain Center if you're not smart. He is an incredibly cerebral player. I think where there are some weaknesses are in lateral quickness. You can see it when a player closes out on him quickly and he fakes like he's going to go to the rim. There's really not an ability to kind of lose that guy. So where he's going to, he's not as slow as, say, like a Joe Ingles from Utah. We used to play for Utah, lefty shooter. I think he's an Australian player, but that's kind of the comp, but a quicker, stronger type player from that perspective. I think if he works on lateral quickness, he really could creep into that first round if a team gets frisky. But I think early second, mid second would be where I could see Alex falling.
Yeah, to me, I'd be interested what he measures at. If he's a true 6'8" at the combine, like if he measures at 6'7 3/4 or whatever it is, everyone gets really granular as if we care about that stuff. I think it's like the difference is like sometimes you see a guy play and he's like he's big. Like what is he measured at 6'7"? Was a big 6'7"? But if he does measure well, like if he's a true 6'8", I think 6'8", he shot 40% his freshman season, 38% from three in the freshman season on volume. Like he took almost 400 threes in 2 years in college, 378 threes in college.
He can shoot it.
Yeah, and shot 39%, and he's big. Like and he can handle a little bit. He's like you said, he doesn't have a ton of wiggle. Like he's not like you're going to throw it to him on the wing and he's going to break someone down, but he can handle, like he can push in transition, he can pass a little bit.
But there are also some moments too, like if you go back and look at some of his best moments of the season, like against a Texas team that has a lot of pro prospects on that team. They may not be, very good, but they were talented, right? That game got close at the end, and in a game where they didn't have like the full complement of players, he stepped up. He got into a bunch of screen and roll situations where they utilized his size and hit some back to the basket fadeaways, mid-range jump shots, 19, 18 feet. That you need in the pro game when the shot clock's winding down. Who's there to kind of help a second unit, be their, rescuer, right? And I think Alex has that ability. He's not afraid to take shots. He also is the type of player that there's one negative to his shooting that they saw this year against better athletes, against better teams, what would be considered quad one teams in the NCAA jargon. He shot only 36%, where some of those, numbers were skewed when he played some lesser teams where he was more open, right? So there is a little bit of pause for concern there.
Okay,
I have a question for you on this. When you measure someone, are you measuring someone with their shoes on or without their shoes? And I think that's so silly. Like they're wearing sneakers on the court.
Yeah, they do shoes off measurements, and it's like, and I this is a long running joke. It's like, well, you don't play basketball barefoot.
Right.
So here's a great news for you. You don't play basketball barefoot. There is some, like, I guess, some normalization value in saying, like, this dude stood next to the, the measurements and he's in barefoot and now we know he's 6'5.5", not 6'8", right? But like, I don't know, whatever he measures at, he's going to wear shoes. Like I guarantee I'm going to put a lock on this. No matter where Alex Karaban gets drafted, he will play in the NBA in shoes. 100% chance.
It's very true.
I think the difference is with the first two guys we talked about in Karaban is that his ceiling is a role player, right? Like that's his. Yeah, but there's value in role players. I'm pretty comfortable in him being an NBA player. How good, I think, is a question, but like when I just think he has the connective skills to be an NBA player. Whether that's like a 11-minute a night ninth man for a long time in the league or something better. Like if he's Joe Ingles, like Ingles can pass, he can dribble, he could shoot. He's, he played really high level basketball before making the NBA. He was playing for freaking Barcelona. But like, it is, if he's that, then he's like, that's a 12-year career. I think I am comfortable with the size and the shooting, saying that if you're a second round pick and the Blazers have 30, for my listeners, the Blazers have 34 and 40. I don't know who else would be listening to the show if they're not my listeners. That's kind of the nature of the beast. But I'm comfortable at 34 and 40 finding a guy with the sort of the right NBA frame and a dude who has proven he can shoot at the college level and do some other stuff. Like he's not, do some other stuff. I'm comfortable with him being a role player. Is there a thing that pops for him that jumps him? Like, what is the swing skill for him that takes him from like long-term role player to maybe like NBA star? Role players can start, but you know what I'm talking about. Like that takes him to that next level.
Well, I don't necessarily know how to answer that question because I don't think that there is a specific skill set because he's an intangibles guy. Let me turn this around on you. Do you think Draymond Green is a role player, but he was on a great team that was able to kind of parlay that into?
Yeah, the difference is Draymond Green has like supercomputer. Like he sees the defense.
Well, that's
so
what Alex.
Well. Yeah,
but I'm telling you, that's what Alex Karaban is. Like, and I asked you that question.
Center. There you go. The brain center. Yeah,
he's considered the brain center. So if you want a guy who's going to put all of your players in the right position on your second unit, that essentially can lead that second unit and not get that much of a drop off from a perspective of getting all the guys lined up. He's the Jason Kelsey of college basketball, like in that respect, right? He's going to get everybody lined up. He's going to, and if you don't know who Jason Kelsey is, I apologize, but he makes all the checks. He gets everybody in the right direction. The leadership you're going to get with Alex Karaban, that's what I would go with. And I hesitate with using that Draymond comp, but it's there because Draymond Green coming out of Michigan State wasn't considered that good of a prospect. But
he was the third pick in the draft. But in that draft, he was the third person the Warriors selected. A very important. It was a 2012 draft. They took Harrison Barnes 8. They took Festus Ezeli, and then they took Draymond. They didn't know. They felt pretty good about it, but they didn't know.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Like. Again, like Draymond's gonna make the Hall of Fame. He's one of the best defenders in the history of the league. But yeah, I think there is something to the just basketball smarts and some skill set. I like I said, I'm very comfortable with Karaban being an NBA player. I am the little bit I've watched of him. I probably watched 5 or 6 UConn games, maybe more than that because I watched their tournament games. But like when I watched him, I said, his size, his shooting, a little bit of ball handling, a little bit of passing, that's an NBA player. Like, I'm not great at this. I've been wrong before. If I'd had a podcast way back in the day, you would have heard me be pretty excited about Corey Brewer. But
True.
So yeah. I don't always get it right, but I feel pretty comfortable with Karaban as that. And if, like you say, like if it's intangible stuff, like if one of his real skills is just like an understanding of what needs to be done, that typically leads to a long run in the league because you know where you fit in. True. Because 85-90% of the league is role players. That's where it happens. Mark, what are you doing right now on Locked On UConn? If people want to check out your show,
sure.
It's frickin' April. What are you talking about over there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's all transfer portal. It's college basketball is the minor league NBA. And it's really become that with player movement, transfer portal, roster construction. It's not just getting freshmen in here. It's interesting. It's a very interesting world. If you want to follow me on socials, it's my name at Marksnetto CBB for college basketball. And if you're looking for Locked On UConn, it's just Locked On UConn on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel if you want to listen to anything UConn related. And we dabble with around the portal a little bit, but it's all related to UConn, right? If Kansas or Kentucky is looking for a player, it's typically how does that affect UConn? So that's what we're doing right now.
Awesome. Well, when the Blazers draft one of 3 of these guys, the Blazers got 4 draft picks. I don't think they're going to use them all, but when they draft one of these 3 guys, I'll have you back on the show. We'll talk all about fit and everything else. Dear listeners, come back tomorrow. We're going to do this again. Keandre from Hoop Intellect is going to join the program. We're talking all things NBA draft because you know what we're doing in April for a team that's pretty bad and hasn't played a basketball game in about a month, 3 weeks. We're talking NBA draft. Come back, tell your friends. It's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.